Welcome in. It's another edition of the Doyel and Derek podcast here at IndyStar.com and the IndyStar app. I'm your host, Derek Schultz, the star of the show, as always, IndyStar sports columnist, award winner, Greg Doyel. Good to see you, man. I just feel like, unfortunately, it's been almost like not a hiatus per se, because we did one 2 weeks ago, but we've kind of been on again, off again here because you went away, I went away, and we're not that far removed from the holidays. It'll be nice to kind of, I think, consistently get in a groove again where people can expect this every single week.
Well, not only did we not have a podcast last week, but I didn't hear from you. And given your recent track record, I thought maybe the Star had laid you off from our podcast.
Yeah, right.
Wait, has you been laid off from this too?
Oh, God.
You've been laid off from jobs you don't even have.
Yeah, can you imagine?
Yeah, from what I understand, like McDonald's says, you can't work for us anymore. Derek's like, I didn't know I worked for you. Well, you don't, but you never will. I'm so sorry. Is it still too soon?
No, it's good now. It's almost been a full month, so I think we've kind of reached the time where it's okay to joke about.
Okay.
But honestly, this is something that I've really been looking forward to ever since I got back, because there's just so much going on right now. And, obviously I don't have the daily or weekday daily outlet that I used to have. So I really looked forward to doing this next edition of the podcast because, like I told you off the air here, we got so much stuff to talk about, man. I feel like, I don't know if you guys still say this in the paper biz, wasn't it 1A topics? Because if something would appear on page 1A, did you guys ever, was that ever a newspaper jargon thing when you were around?
I don't know jargon, but we'd say A1, not 1A.
Or A1, okay. Maybe that's what
we might
was
say
thinking
above the fold. We might just say, wow, there's 3 or 4 topics that Doyle needs to address, but he can only get to one, so we'll let everybody else. No, I don't know. All I know is this. Purdue owns Indiana in basketball, and that is our number 5 topic.
Yeah.
And not because Purdue owning Indiana, we're trying to hide it, not because Purdue's Purdue and we don't care about little brother. None of that. It's just there's stuff going on. And that's a big topic, and it's not – we're going to get to that later, but not right now. What are we getting to right now?
I think we got to lead with the Bob Knight stuff.
Got to lead with Bob Knight.
I think we got to lead with Knight just because I know that it's a couple of days removed from his much-anticipated return to Bloomington, and the cat was out of the bag, what would you say, Greg, like really Tuesday of last week, and I think there was speculation after the Ohio State game thing didn't happen that it wasn't a matter of if but when Coach Knight would return to Bloomington. You were there. I was watching from afar in Florida, actually at the Tampa airport. But what was your main takeaway from Bob Knight's emotional return to Bloomington after almost 20 years?
Well, the cat was actually put, just so you know how the sausage is made, when Ohio State thing didn't happen, IU people they told me, and I'm sure I wasn't the only one, that it's going to happen the Purdue game in a month. Keep it under your hat. We don't want to spook him away and scare him away, but we're going to honor the 1980 team, and he'll be back then. So people like me have known for a month, but it's kind of our obligation, duty, whatever, to not spook it. There's some scoops you want, and there's some scoops you're like, no, I want it to happen. So whoever leaked it, shame on you, whoever you are, but it didn't scare him away. I will tell you that I didn't, because I'm sitting up. This is weird. I'm up in my seat, which is about 25 rows up, and I tried to get down on the court level. About 30 seconds left in that first half. I tried to get down on the court level because I want to get real close. I want to see his eyes. Is he crying? I want to see it. Mm-hmm. They had you couldn't move. Like, they weren't letting you walk down on the court. It was almost like the president was on the court. You can't. I'm like, I'm at the media. And I got to go to the media room. Not at halftime, you don't. Okay. So I say that to preface this, that I didn't realize he actually shoved or went after Dick Vitale. I thought that was playful. And so I wrote, he playfully, blah, blah. I mean, he went after Dick Vitale. Did you see that?
Oh, wait. That wasn't playful?
No, that wasn't playful.
Knight said that it wasn't? Who said that it wasn't playful? Vitale?
I watched it on TV. I watched the highlight.
So you...
Oh, there was no chance that was playful. Unless Knight is such a great actor that he's going to give him that stone-cold death stare as he kind of – that looked – and I don't mean to make that the story because it's not. I'm just saying that I didn't quite see all the nuances way up in my seat.
What I hate is – I always hate speculating on a person's mental health.
Right.
And now I'm about to speculate on a person's mental health.
In this case, it's very fair given everything he has said and done and what everybody around him has said and done.
But I saw a couple people mention that one issue that sometimes people have that are suffering from some sort of dementia is being touched when they're not expecting to be touched.
Okay.
So the fact that Vitale maybe touched his shoulder or whatever like that, he jolted back and reacted in that way. Maybe that had something to do with it. I don't know. My take was that it was a playful kind of thing. I'm not going to lie to you, Greg. I thought it was really odd that was the reaction, even in a playful way. But I have no idea. I think kind of the big topic of that whole thing was it was great to see Knight back, and it was great for the fans, and I think it was great for Bob if he really understood what was going on. But I think the big topic was, how much did he know what was going on? How much was that the Bob Knight that we've seen for the first 78 years of his life?
Well, I will tell you that our Dana Benbow had a story. It's online right now. I know I tweeted it out today. Today's Tuesday. I tweeted it out, so you can go to my page and find it. It's everywhere, I would hope, and not because of me. But she got Todd Leary, the former Hoosier, who was there. She talked to him afterwards. And the opening scene that she paints, in Todd Leary's words, he spoke the night before the game and said, "I love you," and Knight said, "I love you" right back. And Leary said at that moment, and he was being serious at that moment, and he obviously loves Bob Knight. He came back for the reunion, and he told Bob Knight, "I love you." Knight says, "I love you" back, and Leary's response to that, to Dana, was, that's when I knew that wasn't Bob Knight, because he would never say "I love you" back. He would never. He'd smack you on the head and he'd do something else, but he wouldn't say those words. So yeah, he's changed. And there's a couple factors, layers here. One is that we've been hearing, and you get the same tweets I get, whenever you mention Bob Knight maybe coming back to IU, nobody cares. You get that tweet from some idiot who thinks he speaks for everybody. Look, you don't care, and I'm sure you got some friends who don't care. Don't turn that into no. People care.
Yeah.
And so, and then the other layer to this is that, yes, he coached in a way that many could find objectionable, and I'm not saying you'd be wrong. He's got things in his background. He's said and done things we all know. But when a guy that old, that clearly fragile, that legendary to a fan base comes back finally after 20 years, it's only time to celebrate. That's all it is.
Yeah.
You can. There's other times to write about who he was as a coach and blah, blah, blah. But on this day, that moment, even whatever happened with Vital, this was it was healing for a lot of people, and that's the story.
Yeah, the healing part of it, and that's what I focused on, Greg, was I wasn't really, and this is, am I unsympathetic tonight when I say this? I don't know. Maybe it comes off that way. My focus was on the fans. That's who deserved this.
Yes.
I don't know if Knight really deserved to come back. Indiana had extended the olive branch time after time after time, and it had been repeatedly rejected over the last 20 years. I don't think IU owed anything to Bob Knight. I think Bob Knight owed this to the fans that needed that closure.
No question.
And the people that needed closure, I'm an IU alum, a former fan. I did not need closure. I'd moved on with my life. But there were clearly people that needed that closure, and finally I think they got it.
And that's the older crowd, and they're just like all older institutions. They're not going to last forever. But those folks really needed it. And good for them. They matter. I realize there's people your age and younger, my age and younger, who don't care, who are mad at him, who blah, 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 blah. I get all that. But you don't speak for everybody. There's an entire generation or two older than you that most of them wanted that. And I think that's great. And for me, my biggest takeaway, and this might be strange, but I realize there's a fan base here. I realize there's a lot of people here to worry about and think about. My thing is, of course, we don't know what Bob Knight even thinks anymore. We just don't know. But my big thing is, here's an older guy that clearly has been hanging on to hate. I mean, he's hated IU.
Yep.
I hope all those people are dead
sure.
now.
And that was, 2 or 3 years ago? It wasn't that long ago.
I mean, he's held on to his hate, and he's let it go one way or the other. It's gone, and I'm happy for him. I would hate and I don't know him, and the stories I've written about Bob Knight over the years, with the exception of the time I went looking for the cherry through. Otherwise, when I was at CBS and I was writing whatever I wanted, he was on my list, and I don't mean in a good way. So I've never been a Bob Knight apologist, but I'm so happy for him and his family that he came back, because I would hate for him to just keep hanging on to that. There's no need. It's not healthy.
How embarrassing is it for Indiana to play at that level, the current team, when there's so much emotion and energy in the building, the way that they played against Purdue?
I didn't even realize this. I'd forgotten this, and I realized playing Purdue is different than playing whoever Purdue played 4 years ago when Rick Mount came back. I want to say they played Minnesota, but I don't remember. And I tweeted out that story too, like, hey, I was there for Knight's return. I was also there 4 years ago for Rick Mount's return, the two biggest prodigal sons in state history, and they both came back. And I didn't even read my story. I just tweeted it out. Here's what happened. I didn't even look at it. I was there, but apparently Purdue lost that game 4 years ago when Mount came back.
Huh.
And I don't remember that.
No.
I will tell you this, the Purdue building, and I'm not saying this for any reason other than just to give people, context. It was more emotional at Purdue than it was at IU. IU was almost, it wasn't tepid, but when he first came on the court, it was polite. It was a step above polite. I was there, okay? It was a step above polite, but it didn't last. The ovation didn't last very long, and it was just kind of, it was what you'd expect when a former coach comes back, but not that one. But then as the thing went on, as Bob Knight started screaming, play defense, the crowd, you could tell, they started falling in love again. And it got louder and more emotional. But it was never – when Rick Mount showed up at Purdue, the ovation lasted – I mean, it's still echoing in my ears. I mean, it was nuts. Mm-hmm. So the point is, there's a lot of emotion in the buildings. Purdue lost that game too. Granted, IU lost to Purdue, and that's not cool.
Yeah, I just thought with it being a rivalry game and with everything else, Purdue's track record on the road, really a miracle comeback against Northwestern, was the only Big Ten road win, at least. I know they beat Ohio, I think, earlier in the season. And to just get really outclassed by Purdue, I mean, that wasn't a game in the final couple of minutes. They kept them at arm's length seemingly the entire way. That's not a slight on Purdue. I think Purdue is starting to turn the corner. We're going to talk about that coming up a little bit later on.
They are a tournament team. Yeah. They need to get in, but they are one.
Yeah, and a week ago you probably wouldn't have said that. I mean, really what they've done in the last week, bludgeoning Iowa and beating Northwestern and Indiana, and a very interesting game tonight against Penn State.
I'll be there.
That's what I think is now kind of turned the corner for them. But you wonder if that collapse against Maryland is where Indiana's season gets off the rails, because it hasn't gone back on the rails since a 4-game losing skid.
Yeah, I hate to, and this is going to sound like I'm blaming all of this on one guy, and I'm not. I'm not. But the team, the Hoosiers have a clear wild card, clear. Purdue has a couple of them, but Aaron Wheeler's been kind of missing most of the year, so he's almost not even a wild card anymore. He's just been missing. He's coming back, and he came back against IU. But IU's got one guy that if he's really good, they're going to be hard to beat, and at home you're almost not going to beat him at home. If he's really bad, they're not beating anybody, and that guy's Devontae Green.
Yep.
And because he's that good, I mean, he's that capable of being that good that if he's on, you're in trouble if you're the other team, because you can't stop him. I mean, I've said this for years. I don't know that he's an NBA player because of his issues, and I mean his issues on the court, but he's got NBA talent. And if that NBA talent comes out, you can't stop him. But he was terrible against Purdue. I think 1 for 7, 3 points, and they can't win if he does that. They just can't do it. They don't have enough help on the perimeter.
Was that I don't think you were here when Tom Crean had the number 1 seed team with Oladipo and Zeller. That was about a year or two before you got to Indianapolis. But somebody tweeted me after that game. It feels like this was his Syracuse game, and what we talk about at the time was you knew, and Tom Crean has a much better track record than Archie Miller, but it felt like when Crean's team with 4 1,000-point scorers lost and really got outclassed by Syracuse in that Sweet 16 in 2013, you felt like that was as far as they were ever going to get with Tom Crean.
Gotcha.
So loose comparison aside here, was that Purdue game maybe the time where the last of the Archie Miller defenders said, hey, wait a minute, this doesn't seem to be getting any better?
You know, the Knight thing is part of the reason why we're saying this, I'm sure, is that with all the attention, all the emotion, Bob Knight's in the building, and that's what you looked like. I'm sure that's part of why some people would say what you're saying. Not all of it. But it's also why some people, including me, would say, I don't know if you can even go there yet, because that game was so weird. Knight coming back, I guess, I mean, again, you lose to Purdue, people remember that. Like I said, I was there for the Mount game. I'd forgotten they lost. I don't even know who they played. You don't forget when you lose to Purdue. It's different. Having said that, I just don't know if that night, those circumstances, I'm not sure this is the one. I mean, it might be, especially if they fall off a cliff and go 2-9 the rest of the year. Then yes, it is. Mm-hmm. But I just don't know if that's. I'm not willing to say that yet. No, because the night was just too crazy.
If they miss the tournament.
Well, they're missing the tournament.
Like I don't think
they're not getting it.
I don't think Archie Miller is going to be fired after 3 years. But if you miss the tournament in year 3, it's unacceptable. It's not hard to make the NCAA tournament. There are going to be a lot of mediocre teams that make the NCAA tournament, just like every year. And in the Big Ten, you have umpteen chances for quality wins. Yes, it's a tough league, but you've got a million chances. Like, look at Purdue. Purdue's lost 10 games, but I think they're going to be an NCAA tournament team just because they've got enough wins to kind of get them by.
And the bubble's very, very soft.
I just think, we can sit here and blame Crean for the upperclassmen or whatever else. At this point, Archie Miller's got to show something, and he's shown nothing. The program hasn't gotten any better since he's gotten there.
No, and there's a couple factors here that make it really interesting, and one of them is Fred Glass is leaving, and Fred's the guy that hired him, and Fred's been a guy that we've seen it. He did it with Crean. He did it with Kevin Wilson. He did it with Tom Allen when some people might have been eager to get rid. I mean, not after 2 years. I mean, not that he was fireable, but he believed in Tom Allen. You see where that went in a good way. Fred believes in continuity, and he damn sure doesn't believe in firing a guy after 3 years, or probably even 4 if you gave him a 5-year contract. But Fred won't be here after year 4. I don't think Archie's in trouble right now, no matter what happens. But Fred's retiring, someone's replacing him. I think year 4 for Archie is absolute make or break. I mean, absolutely.
Yeah, there's no question.
Because there's a new AD, right, and you're not tied to him, and the buyout will be as reasonable as a buyout can be. So that's one factor here. The other factor here, and I mean, I don't know if this feels fair, but my God, look how good Dayton is.
Mm-hmm.
You know, Archie, and one reason why I love the hire of Archie, and one is because I've known him since 1997. I mean, I like him, and I covered him for the Charlotte Observer when he was a player, so I like him, and I certainly don't root ill will against him at all. But one reason I really loved him as a hire was not just because I knew him, but because he was so good at Dayton, and his teams were so tough, and that was great. But now he's gone, and Dayton's actually better, and I'm not saying he was holding him back. That's not my point. My point is, Dayton is, they always say you want to have the best job in a conference. That coaches want the best job in a conference. Mm-hmm. They'd rather be coaching like a Dayton than have the 9th best job in the Big Ten, because you can't win there. You're going to get fired. Dayton's the best job in that conference. And you look at all the guys that have won there. Brian Greggy leaves to Georgia Tech. You know, Paul Hewitt left for wherever I think Paul Hewitt. But Grant's there now. They've had guys go on to better jobs. And Archie Miller goes, but I just wonder if the Dayton thing is skewed maybe just how ready he was for this job. That's my point.
Yeah, it's a little like Butler, where you've had guys move on. You know, Barry Collier takes the Nebraska job, which is the, 10th best job in the Big 12 at the time, or you have Licklider take the Iowa job, which is the 8th best job in the Big 10, and obviously both of those guys didn't have great results there.
Right.
And I think it's another example to kind of swing this back to Purdue, because I'm sure Purdue fan listeners are like, why aren't you talking about the boys? It's the luxury that Purdue has when you have Matt Painter, because every time it seems like there's a valley with Purdue, every time there is a put up or shut up time in Purdue's season, they respond, don't they?
Yeah.
I mean, it just feels like the last couple of years. Remember, they struggled out of the gates in 14-15 and turned their season around in January. A couple of years ago, they went out and played in a preseason tournament and lost to, I think, Western Kentucky and Tennessee. And you thought, what the hell is this? What's up with this team? And then they rattled off like 20 wins in a row. And I think that 11-0 run at Northwestern, we're going to look back on that as the point where Purdue saved their season. Because if they lose that game, they're probably done. I mean, they're 500 at that point, and you just lost to the worst team in the Big Ten. And look, they still have an uphill climb here. Penn State's very good. That's coming to Mackey tonight, and they've got some tough games remaining, but I think Purdue has stabilized itself, whereas it feels like Indiana last year and now this year, they get in this valley, they dig themselves this hole, and they can't get out.
Well, there's two things with Matt Painter that he does, and we could argue in both cases that Archie Miller hasn't shown that yet at IU. Of course, Matt's been at Purdue a lot longer. But Painter's teams are always the most mentally tough team on the court. And maybe they're tied. Maybe whoever they're playing is mentally tough too, and they're both just very tough. But Painter's teams, you will never say they were listless. They came out flat. Mm-hmm. They didn't seem to care. They weren't you don't say that about Painter's teams ever. But the other thing is his players year to year get better. Now, Aaron Wheeler has regressed this year, but he's coming back. But, that's almost the exception that proves the rule. Painter gets his hands on the guy, and he's better every year. At IU, a fan, I don't know if you heard about this, but a fan was telling Archie the other night on his radio show or wherever he does.
I saw the article, yeah.
Yeah, we had an article story in the Star about that. The fan said, your team was listless and out of it, and they weren't talking. They didn't look like they cared. And Archie's like, I need to have you come talk to the team. I tell them that, and I'm not sure they listen to me. You tell them that. In other words, Archie's admitting, yeah, my team mentally soft. Mm-hmm. And also then you talk about do guys get better? And some guys do, for sure, but and I hate to keep bringing him up like it's his fault, but it's not. But Devontae Green's no better than he was. Mm-hmm. He gets more minutes, but you can't look at
Al Durham.
Al Durham, I thought was going to be really good this year, and it's just
Justin Smith. I mean, all these guys,
right?
They're
all
keep
the same
waiting.
guy.
Oh, Justin Smith. Here's the big explosion here.
Deron Davis,
my God,
he's had health issues.
Deron Davis
still
waiting.
Has had health, but all those young guys, Race Thompson, who's had health issues too, but he's the same guy he was. Yeah. He'll always be the same guy he is, which is he better come in and set a few screens and then get out, because that's all he can do.
And I just think that Purdue, Greg, has an identity. They're going to defend the hell out of you. You know they're going to hustle. You know they're going to rebound. That has been the pillars of Purdue basketball for spanning my lifetime for the last 50 years, really. Indiana has no identity. You have no idea who they are. The names and faces change at Purdue, but Painter has built a culture there where everybody, all the pieces fit. You have the balding guy in Boudreaux. You've got Harms, the big 7-footer. Sasha Stefanovic and guys like that have come through, like Dakota Mathias. You have those bulldog guards like Eric Hunter. it just, the pieces seem to fit. And with Indiana, it's just kind of a jumbled mess where they have talent, but it just doesn't gel and it's not cohesive.
Well, there's a couple things about this that you're saying. One is, and it compares to IU with Purdue, is that Painter goes out of his way every year. We know this. He wants to bring in at least one shooter every class. And on theory, everybody, in theory, yeah, we all want shooters, but it's different. Painter goes out and gets a guy. He doesn't care where they are on the recruiting listings, doesn't care what star rank they are. He wants a guy that he knows can shoot. Sasha Stefanovic, if you remember, Grant Galen was the star in their high school team. Mm-hmm. Grant Galen, not that he was, anyway. So Sasha was the other guy, and not a big-name recruit, but Purdue went and got Purdue. Painter goes and does that. He gets one guy, and what does IU miss? Has always missed? Shooters. But IU always recruits at the higher end of the recruiting buffet, whether it's Crean or Archie Miller. They go out and get guys that are 4 stars and ranked in the top 100 that just can't shoot. And I guess, and as I said earlier, no one's getting better. They're not getting taught how to shoot. I mean, even Romeo before. Of course, Romeo had the issue with the wrist. That's not even fair to bring that up. I apologize for that. He had the issue, so we didn't know about that at the time, but in real time. But so Purdue does that. They always have shooters. But even if they don't have shooters, even if like Aaron Wheeler was going to be their guy this year, Nogel Eastern we thought would give them more offensively. Matt Harms we thought would give them a lot more offensively. Purdue's not a team where you say, but who's going to give them points? You don't even care because they got everything else going for them, and as long as just somebody scores, they're beating you.
Yeah. And they just kind of find a way, and Indiana seems to repeatedly not do that. We've got big Pacers and Colts stuff to talk about.
Haven't even gotten into
it. Spent the first 20 minutes on Indiana-Purdue, but I felt like there was just so much from Saturday, both from a Purdue standpoint. I really like what you said in your column where, it with Purdue, I'm paraphrasing here, one team obviously is ascending while another team is sliding.
Well, I said
and you
one
saw
team
that.
improved its resume, the other team didn't. But, I love the fact that we're about to move on, but I love the fact that we gave Purdue their due here. Mm-hmm. We didn't just talk about Bob Knight and maybe some IU stinks, and then Purdue, by the way, at the end, because they just don't deserve that. They don't deserve it from us. They don't deserve it from anybody. But I understand why they're very sensitive. I mean, I get it. Listen, I get it. When you're the quote other school and you see the media treating you that way, it's tough. Over 30 years, it's tough.
4 straight at Assembly Hall. I don't care how good or bad Indiana is. 4 straight wins at Assembly Hall is something that I think only one other program has done. I mean, that's incredible.
Since Bob Knight retired, Purdue's had the best coach in the state. And that's been 30 years or 20 years. I mean, Purdue's had the best whoever the coach was, they got the best coach in the state, and that's and Matt's still young. Purdue's got all these game notes. Chris Foreman does a great job with his pregame notes. And they got one note that Painter is for the under whatever his age is, under 55, under whatever he is, he's got as many wins as anybody for certain. The point being is that Painter's not going anywhere. Like they got easy 10 years at it because he lives a low-stress life as far as I can tell. He certainly coaches in a low-stress way. You don't look at him and say, yeah, but he's going to burn out. No, he's not. I mean, that guy could be around until he's 75.
Yeah.
I mean, maybe.
And he's just the perfect fit there.
Perfect.
He really is. And they've done – I'm glad that they've had these deep tournament runs because that was the thing that people were holding against him was, hey, why have you done this? Why have you done that in March?
He's
and
appreciated.
Now 3 straight Sweet 16s and an elite – I mean, they were on the doorstep. They could have very easily been a national champion last year. That's how close they were.
And Painter's so much more appreciated by everybody, including a portion of his fan base, when he has a team like this than he is when he has a team that's really, really good because that's when people kind of get greedy. Yeah, but he can't get to the Final Four. Yeah, but there's no buts on a team like this, and you realize the guy's special. I mean, winning, and they don't have chicken bleep, but they have people on their roster, but this team will be in the tournament.
Yeah.
And you look on paper in the preseason, they had no business.
It's not Hummel, Moore, and Johnson or Haas, Matthias, Edwards, Swanigan.
Right.
You know what I mean? I mean, it's a decent group, but it's certainly not a level of All-Americans and future NBA players.
Not one.
Let's talk Colts. This Rivers thing, really the quarterback speculation has been going on now for weeks and weeks, and it will continue. But now that we know Phillip Rivers is the first domino to fall, he officially will not be with his former team next year.
Brady either, though. Well, Brady hasn't gone quite that far, but he's on the open market. There's 2 that have fallen.
And Tannehill, and I mean, there are other guys that are probably going to be on the open market, but this guy, Rivers, is the first who definitely will be on the open market.
And he's got a right connection.
Yeah, that's right. Sirianni and Reich, who he played 3 seasons with, 2013, 14, and 15 was very successful. But 38 years old, everyone's linking him to the Colts. In fact, they're the second Vegas betting odds favorite behind the Buccaneers, oddly enough. Colts are plus 150 if you want to throw your money on them. I know we've talked about this on the podcast, Greg, before, but you are shut off to the idea of bringing in another stopgap, if you will, sort of quarterback, correct?
Well, sort of. But about the reason why Tampa Bay makes sense, 2 reasons. Bruce Arians is a quarterback coach, and Rivers has already moved his family to Florida. And Tampa Bay is actually on the correct side of Florida because Rivers is from Alabama. So, the Panhandle and whatnot. So, Tampa Bay makes a lot of sense to me. And they clearly want a quarterback. Jameis is not, I think. So, I'm not confused at all why Tampa Bay would be number one. And as I've already said, I just like this. I covered Archie at NC State. Guess who the quarterback was as a freshman? My first year at NC State, covering NC State. Phillip Rivers.
Oh, yeah.
He was the quarterback.
Yeah.
He was my guy for 3 years there, and I really liked. I liked Archie, but we all know Archie. He's a little bit. You can't know him that well.
Mm-hmm.
Phillip Rivers is golly gosh, open book. I loved Phillip Rivers, loved him, and I guarantee you this, and I say this only about Phillip, not about me. I guarantee you, if he ends up back here, he'll remember me, and not because of me,
because that's the type of person he is.
That's who he is, and he's just a great guy. So. Then you factor in, and because I'm just stupid. When I'm against stopgaps, and I didn't think Rivers would make a lot of sense either. I hadn't until in the last couple of days thought about. But wait a minute, Sirianni, worked. He'll know the system somewhat. So anyway, I don't know. What I like the Colts thinking they need a better quarterback than they have. I like that a lot. I like if they think there's a guy in the draft they're going to go get him. But given that free agency happens before that, if you're not sure, then go get this guy. The problem is that if they get Rivers, and he's not lasting long, we know that. If they get Rivers and they go 9-7, which is a good problem to have, but then next year they're picking 20th, then I don't know if that's really what you want to do. You're not trying to win this little 5K sprint here. You're trying to win a marathon. Yeah. I just don't know. And I love Phillip Rivers. I'm just not sure that's the right move.
Yeah, do you really want to win 8 games again? Because what does it really, at the end of the day, what does it do?
You want to win 8 games if Bryce Love or whatever that kid's name from Utah State.
Yeah, Jordan Love.
Love, right. Bryce Love played for Oregon. That's what I do with names. I do that with Brian Hoying. You want to win 8 games with a rookie quarterback. You do. You don't want to win 8 games with Phillip Rivers. I just don't.
And what are you going to have to pay him? Because, there are a couple of things here. If the Colts are going to get Rivers, they're going to have to trade Brissett for whatever a team is going to give for him. I don't know, a 5th rounder or something like that. Because if they trade him before, I think it's March 22nd, they save something like $16 million on the cap. His roster bonus is already guaranteed. Now, the Colts have a lot of money to play with. They have the most cap space in the league, so it's not like they're strapped. But there would be no reason to keep Brissett at whatever it is, $18 million, and then pay Rivers whatever he's going to command, $20 million plus. But at 38 years old, that's not. We've seen Breeze. We've seen a lot of guys play well into their late 30s. I don't think Rivers is quite on that tier, but to me, I think he's a Hall of Famer. At the very least, he's a borderline Hall of Famer. And 2 years ago, Greg, he had a fantastic year. 32 touchdowns, 13 picks. The Chargers were very nearly the number 1 seed in the AFC. So I don't know if just because he had a bad season last year that suddenly Rivers is toast. I don't know if I think that. It really kind of, this is going to sound like a cop-out answer. It depends on what else the Colts are planning to do. If they're planning on not drafting a quarterback until the 3rd round, then Rivers makes a lot of sense. But if you're going to trade up or use number 13 on a quarterback, I think you probably just play that guy. Just my take on it.
A couple things about this. I'm trying to find out, Rivers, how far off a cliff has he fallen. But the thing with Rivers is that I don't know that he's going to get $20 million. I don't know who would do that. Who would pay him that kind of money, given his age, given that he's not what he was, given all that. I'm not sure he's $20 million. I'm not sure he is.
Well, it's basically just the going rate for quarterbacks. I mean, Brissett was, I think, the 19th highest paid, and he made $18 million last year.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess the fact that there might be a team or two driving up the price, I guess. Rivers clearly is about, at this point in his life and his career, he's about family happiness. He's already, before anything happened with the Chargers, he was already moving his family to Florida. He's trying to get closer to his wife's family, his family in Alabama and all that. He's clearly about things beyond money and football, which certainly beyond money. So I wonder if, and I don't know how much he's made, but a fortune, clearly.
Enough that he could spend in this lifetime.
So, and I'm not saying he'd come to the Colts for the veterans minimum or whatever, but I just don't, if he wants to play with Nick Sirianni, it probably comes down to this. How close were he and Nick? How much does he like Nick? Because Philip's going to pick a team based on a lot of factors, and maybe he's going to pick it on Super Bowl, but I don't think a legit Super Bowl contender, A, exists that is a quarterback away, and B, that team doesn't exist if they're a 39-year-old quarterback away. So I don't know that he's going to go somewhere where he can really win a Super Bowl. I don't know if that – I mean, he might come here and be hot and win one here, but on paper, there's no fit for him where he's going to say, yeah, well, that's where we win a Super Bowl. No, it's going to come down to something else, and I wonder if Sirianni's that something else.
Yeah, and Reich, because former offensive coordinator, so there's a connection there. And like I said, 13, 14, 15, he had 3 of the best seasons of his career.
Wait, so Reich was his OC in San Diego?
Yeah, at the same time. So Reich was the OC, and Sirianni was his position coach. He was the quarterback coach.
You know, I keep forgetting, I've written about this about Reich, but I keep forgetting that besides Philadelphia, he was in San Diego for a year or two. Okay, no, it's hard. I'm not even saying, again, I've already said, I'm not sure I think this should happen for the Colts' sake, but it's kind of hard to imagine, or it's very easy to imagine it happening, given all the connections and blah, blah, blah. But I just, as I've said, I don't think that the Colts, I mean, you get a stopgap guy if that guy is super and you win a Super Bowl with him. I just don't think Rivers is the guy at this age, and I love Phillip Rivers.
Yeah, I'm with you. I think everything's on the table for the Colts, so nothing would surprise me at this point, but I would still lean towards them going young and drafting one and just throwing them into the fire, because I don't think winning 8 or 9 games does anything for you.
There's 3 options here. Rank them in order of likelihood. Their options is Jacoby. Their option is a rookie. Their option is Phillip Rivers. In likelihood, what do you see happening on opening day?
I think the most likely scenario is – that's a really good question. I don't know how they get away with this, but I've always felt this way. I think it's going to be Brissett as the opening day starter in September with a rookie as the backup. That's what I think it's going to be.
That's me too. I think it's hard to say actually between rookie and Brissett, because I think they compete for the job. And I think happens is they have a rookie and they have Jacoby, and that's what I think happens. And Jacoby might beat him out, but that's what I think happens.
Now, that's not what I would do. I'm just telling you what I think the Colts would do.
What would you do?
What I would do is just throw them into the fire. I know a lot of people say draft a rookie and throw them into the fire. I know a lot of people say, David Carr and Houston and, Jeff George here, you throw these guys to the Wolves and then they're never able to mentally recover. I don't think you can play scared when it comes to that stuff.
Well, and I'm not sure that's happened. The examples you mentioned are 10 years old or more.
No, you're right.
And Carson Palmer, they gave him a year off in Cincinnati. Look how that turned out. And Brett Favre, I don't think had to play. And Aaron Rodgers maybe had a year off.
Yep.
But all these examples are a long, long time ago. Nowadays, rookies get drafted, and even if you're Gardner Minshew and you're not drafted to play, you play anyway.
Yeah.
And you play just fine. The game has gotten so much easier, and it's not easy, but it's so much easier for quarterbacks given how defenders can cover you, given how nasty offenses are now. They're just ahead of the defense. They just are. So, yeah, I don't think you draft a rookie and then say, we're going to sit you. No, not behind Jacoby.
Took us 30 minutes, but I guess we got to talk about how much the Pacers stink right now. Oof.
Ugh.
Awful.
I was the night that Oladipo announced his return date was going to be January 29th, whatever that was. That was a month before. I was at the Pacers game that night because Oladipo was talking. And again, this is a month before he came back. And me and Jay Michael did a video after the game, whoever they played that night, whoever they won or lost to, I don't remember. I just remember this saying, and I'm not smarter than anybody else. I want people to understand we all knew this was happening. I told Jay Michael, when Oladipo comes back, they're going to take a step back. And it's obvious. You don't add a guy that important coming off that injury in midseason to a roster where he doesn't know hardly anybody. And the 2 guys he knows, Sabonis and Turner, he doesn't know them as playing on the court together. He doesn't know anything about this team. They're going to take a big step back. The risk will be, are they better in March? Because they're not going to be better in February. And that's happening right now. So on the one hand, man, is it ugly and awful and scary and all these things. On the other hand, this was always going to happen. So it's almost like a stock that you don't really want to touch for 3-4 months. You don't freak out when it drops a little bit. You're hoping that, it drops now, but man, it's going to skyrocket in 3 months.
And the season ebbs and flows anyway. So, generally you have now, I can't remember the last time the Pacers have been this bad at home. And what troubles me, Greg, is that this isn't great competition. I mean,
No.
Toronto's very good. The Knicks are terrible.
The Nets without Kyrie?
Yeah, the Bulls, who they should have lost to, are terrible.
Yeah.
The Doncic-less Mavs, who they
Right.
lost to, and then the Pelicans brought nobody here. They brought like their split squad team here, and you lost to them.
No Zion or Ingram. Ugh.
Yeah, so I think that's what's most troubling to me. And yes, Warren has been in and out, and Oladipo coming back. I get all of that, but I expected the Pacers to have a little bit of a rocky transition here. I didn't expect them to go, 1-6 in the 7 games, especially considering that they were at home and the teams that they were facing. I'm with you. I'm not going to write off anything, but I am concerned, and we've done this the last couple of years, and this is kind of what I tempered expectations with. When people were saying in December, this Pacers team, they're going to be even better when Oladipo gets back, and watch out for the Pacers, they're a contender. We do this every year in this town. where in December or January we're talking about the Pacers being contenders, and then in March and April they're first-round fodder again. And I just don't want this team to peak Christmas like they've done the last couple of years.
Yeah, if you're looking for a bright side, one bright side is Oladipo's shot is coming around. I'm not saying it's great, but I mean, it was so bad his first 4 games. He was so bad. His last couple games from 3 is coming around. I think last night was 5 for 14, wasn't great. But from 3, he was better. So that's slowly coming back. What troubled me from last night's box score is I'm following it from home, and I'm reading the box score at the end of every quarter. At halftime, he had the 5th or 6th most shots in the team. He took 4 shots in the first half and played as many minutes or more than everybody else. And he finally got his shots up late. But I was thinking, is he starting to get timid? Is he starting to get our teammates mad? Are they freezing him out? I mean, I wasn't there, so I don't know. Mm-hmm. But I thought that he went from a guy that was shooting a shot every minute to get his rhythm back to a guy that you're barely shooting now. So it's just one game, but it's one game against the damn Nets.
Yeah. So
that was problematic. But again, I'm going to go back to, until I have to switch courses, I'm going to go back to, we all knew this was going to be rocky. We all knew it was. And this whole thing really can't be judged until the playoffs start. Granted, if they go 1-22 between now and then, I think we can judge it pretty good, but it's just a little bit early.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more of a sample size than 7 games in 2 weeks, because that's essentially what we have here. I wanted to fit this in. Congratulations to Tamika Catchings, Women's Basketball Hall of Fame, soon to be Naismith Hall of Fame, I would think, and somebody who I think we should really talk about more in this town, because maybe outside of Peyton Manning, but I would put her up there. She arguably is the greatest women's basketball player ever, and we've been lucky enough to have her in this town for the better part of the last 20 years.
Right, she's on that list, and beyond that, when I think of Tamika right now, but certainly when I think of her 10, 15 years from now, what's going to matter to me more than anything is what she does around here. And it's not, and I don't mean this in a bad way, but it's easier for guys, for men, NFL players, NBA players, because they have so much money. Mm-hmm. It's easier for them to kind of throw money at stuff and raise money because of their name. I mean, it's just easier. But Tamika, so she's not out there with $100 million in her bank account and also helping. She's out, whatever she's made, we just know they don't make what she's still out there doing her stuff rather than chasing money somewhere else, because she needs to chase it more than Peyton Manning ever did. And I love Peyton. So I just, the thing she does, little stuff. She reads to kids. I mean, little bitty stuff, which to me matters so much more than the big stuff. She's a wonderful human being. And, oh, by the way, on the Mount Rushmore, the best basketball players of all time. So you're right. In our city's history, we've had Peyton. We've had Luck, and I love him. We've
Reggie
had
Miller.
Reggie Miller, Tamika. We've had – those are the 4, I guess. Maybe I'm thinking leaving somebody out, but those are the 4.
No, and Reggie, as much as he's beloved here, when Reggie left, he left. You know what I mean?
Right.
He still loves Indiana, and Indiana loves Reggie, but Reggie's gone, and he's been gone. Tamika's still here.
Right.
And I think that's the difference between her and pretty much everybody else on this list, even though Luck is apparently, pushing a stroller around Zionsville right now somewhere.
I love that. I love him so much.
So I'm intrigued by this. Cloverdale, you've got a column coming up on, is that right?
I got 2 coming up I'm really excited about. One of them is the 1930 Washington Hatchets. The first, we all know Crispus Attucks was the first all-black state champion in U.S. history. The first integrated state champion in U.S. history happened 25 years earlier in Washington, Indiana.
I did not know that.
No, you didn't. And you don't know the name of the black star they had.
I do not.
And listen, I'm an Indiana basketball junkie. Since I got here, I've been trying to learn the state as much as I can. I've been all over the state writing stories. His name is David DeJernet. I'd never heard of him. I mean, you could have given me a multiple choice. Hey, who's the guy watching? You could have given me 4 names. He'd been one of them. I may have circled the letter by his name out of luck, but I wouldn't have picked it. Mm-hmm. David DeJernet is an unbelievable story, and that story runs in about a week. And then, I was at Cloverdale yesterday. I'm writing about a barber. And there's a basketball somewhere in that. There's just enough there to justify it being a sports story, but the entire town of Cloverdale will know who I'm writing about. And then whoever reads it will go, oh, okay, I see why you're writing about him. It's just one of those things I like to do. Just, he's retiring soon, and honestly, and this sounds weird, but I don't care. I was told he's retiring. I was told he lost his wife a couple years ago. I was told he doesn't really know what's going on. He's 80-something. He's a little bit down. It'd really be a nice pick-me-up if you'd write about him in the Star. I'm like, sold.
Awesome.
I showed up at his office yesterday, and I thought he knew who I was, because I walked in, he was cutting someone's hair, and he kind of smiles at me and says, I think I know why you're here. And so at this point, I think he knows exactly why I'm there. So then I finally I say, well, okay, that's fine. You do your business. I'm not going to talk to you right now. I'm just going to sit over here. And then I thought, no, that's weird. So I hopped up and said, okay, I'll tell you real quick. I'm Greg Doyel at IndyStar. He shakes my hand, and then he goes, I got to tell you, I'm not interested. I went, oh, no, you're not? Because I'm thinking we're talking about a story. Yeah. Oh, no, you're not? And he goes, no, I canceled my subscription about 6 months ago, and I just, I'm selling the shop here, and I stopped him. I said, I'm not here to sell you paper. He goes, you're not? I said, no, I'm here to write about you. He goes, oh, well, have a seat.
Well, I knew him looking at your head. You weren't in for a haircut.
That's the thing. I was thinking, I'm going to go in this guy's office, get a haircut, and not tell him who I am, and that'll be part of the story. And then I realized I can't do that. I'm bald.
So you can check all that out. Cloverdale and more. The Bob Knight story, which was great, from Saturday as well. IndyStar.com, the IndyStar app. You can also go to the Greg Doyel link. And our podcast is available, iTunes and more. You can always check that out. And I promise we'll get more regular on this now that all the vacations and holidays and all of that stuff is over.
Our new podcast name, Metamucil.
Thanks so much, Greg. We'll see you next week.
I apologize for that. Bye.
Good way to end.
Yeah.